Sarah thought she had found the perfect weekend getaway. The Airbnb listing showed a charming two-story colonial house in upstate New York, complete with hardwood floors, vintage furniture, and a cozy fireplace. The host, Michael, had a 5-star rating and dozens of glowing reviews. What could go wrong? She arrived on Friday evening, just as the sun was setting behind the maple trees that surrounded the property. The house looked exactly like the photos: white clapboard siding, black shutters, and a welcoming front porch with 2 rocking chairs. Michael had left the key in a lockbox as promised, along with a handwritten note welcoming her to his home away from home. The interior was even more impressive than the photos suggested. The living room featured a brick fireplace with built-in bookshelves on either side, filled with classic novels and travel guides. The kitchen had been updated with modern appliances while maintaining its original 1950s charm, complete with checkered tile floors and vintage cabinet hardware. Sarah dropped her bags in the master bedroom, which overlooked the backyard through large windows framed by floral curtains. She was particularly excited about the clawfoot tub in the attached bathroom, the perfect place to relax after her long drive from the city. But something felt off. As she unpacked her clothes, Sarah noticed small details that didn't match the listing photos. The bedroom dresser had been moved slightly, leaving rectangular marks on the hardwood floor where it used to sit. The bathroom mirror seemed to reflect light at an odd angle, creating a strange glare she couldn't quite identify. That first night, she dismissed these observations as paranoia. She was used to staying in hotels, not someone's personal home. Of course, things would feel different. The next morning, while making coffee in the kitchen, Sarah discovered something that made her blood run cold. Behind the toaster, partially hidden by the backsplash, was a tiny black dot no bigger than a pinhead. At first, she thought it was just a screw or a decorative element. But when she looked closer, she realized it was a camera lens. Her hands trembled as she examined the kitchen more carefully. Once she knew what to look for, she found them everywhere. A camera disguised as a smoke detector above the dining table, another one built into the decorative clock on the living room mantel, one more hidden inside what appeared to be a phone charger plugged into the wall near the couch. Sarah's mind raced. How long had she been watched? Had Michael been observing her unpacking, showering, sleeping? The thought made her stomach turn. She grabbed her phone and started recording evidence, documenting each camera's location and appearance. But as she moved through the house, she discovered the surveillance system was far more extensive than she had initially realized. In the bathroom, the strange mirror reflection she had noticed was actually caused by a 2-way mirror with a camera behind it. The bedroom had cameras hidden in the smoke detector, the alarm clock, and even inside a fake air freshener plugged into the wall outlet. But the most disturbing discovery was in the basement. Sarah had initially avoided going downstairs, but now she needed to know the full extent of Michael's operation. The basement had been converted into what could only be described as a surveillance command center. Multiple monitors lined a long desk, each showing live feeds from different rooms in the house. Some screens showed other properties too. Michael apparently owned several Airbnb rentals, all equipped with hidden cameras. Dozens of external hard drives were stacked on shelves, labeled with dates and property addresses. Sarah realized this wasn't just casual spying. This was a systematic operation to record and archive footage of unsuspecting guests. One particular monitor made her heart stop. It showed her own bedroom from the night before, with a timestamp indicating the recording was still in progress. She watched herself sleeping, completely unaware that every movement was being captured and stored. Sarah immediately called the police from her cell phone, but the rural location meant it would take at least 30 minutes for them to arrive. She needed to get out of the house immediately, but she also wanted to gather as much evidence as possible to ensure Michael couldn't do this to anyone else. Working quickly, she used her phone to record the entire basement setup, making sure to capture the monitor feeds, the hard drives, and the sophisticated recording equipment. She also took photos of every hidden camera she had found throughout the house. As she was finishing her documentation, she heard a car pulling into the driveway. Sarah's heart pounded as she realized Michael had returned unexpectedly. She was trapped in the basement with damning evidence of his illegal surveillance operation. Through a small basement window, she could see his feet walking toward the front door. She quickly emailed the photos and videos to herself, then deleted them from her phone in case Michael discovered her and tried to destroy the evidence. Then she found an alternative exit through the basement's exterior door, which led directly to the backyard. Sarah managed to escape through the wooded area behind the house, just as Michael entered through the front door. She waited in the trees until the police arrived, then provided them with all the evidence she had gathered. The investigation revealed that Michael had been operating this surveillance scheme for over 3 years, recording hundreds of guests across multiple properties. He was arrested and charged with multiple felonies, including invasion of privacy, illegal surveillance, and possession of illegal recordings. All of his Airbnb listings were immediately removed from the platform, and the company implemented new policies requiring hosts to disclose any recording devices on their properties. Sarah's quick thinking and bravery had not only protected her from further violation, but had also prevented countless other travelers from becoming victims. She later learned that several previous guests had left reviews mentioning weird feelings about the property, but none had investigated thoroughly enough to discover the cameras. Her story became a cautionary tale that spread throughout social media, reminding people to always check their accommodations carefully. Today, Sarah always travels with a small device that can detect hidden cameras, and she never stays anywhere without doing a thorough sweep of the property first. Kevin had booked what appeared to be the perfect Airbnb for his business trip to Portland. The listing showed a modern townhouse in a safe neighborhood, complete with a home office space and high-speed internet. The host, Jennifer, had excellent reviews and had been quick to respond to his questions. But what Kevin didn't know was that Jennifer had been dead for 6 months. When Kevin arrived at the address provided in his booking confirmation, he found himself standing in front of a beautiful 3-story townhouse with contemporary gray siding and large windows. The smart lock code Jennifer had sent worked perfectly, and he let himself inside, impressed by the sleek interior design. The first floor featured an open-concept living area with modern furniture, a gourmet kitchen with stainless steel appliances, and floor-to-ceiling windows. Upstairs, he found 2 bedrooms and a home office with a large desk, perfect for his morning video conferences. Kevin settled in for what he expected to be a productive week. He set up his laptop in the office, ordered takeout from a nearby restaurant, and even took a bath in the master bedroom's luxurious soaking tub. Everything seemed perfect. But that first night, as Kevin was working late in the home office, he heard something that made his blood freeze. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps moving around downstairs. Kevin muted his video conference and listened intently. The footsteps continued, moving from the kitchen to the living room, then stopping directly below where he was sitting. He could hear someone opening and closing cabinet doors, as if they were looking for something specific. "Hello?" Kevin called out softly. "Is someone there?" The sound stopped immediately. Kevin crept to the top of the stairs and peered down into the darkened first floor. All the lights were off, exactly as he had left them. But he could smell something now, coffee brewing. Fresh coffee. He made his way downstairs slowly, his phone's flashlight cutting through the darkness. In the kitchen, the coffee maker was running. Hot, fresh coffee was dripping into the pot, steam rising from the machine. But Kevin hadn't started it. He didn't even know there was coffee in the house. As he stood staring at the coffee maker, he heard a voice behind him. "You're in my kitchen." Kevin spun around and saw a woman standing in the doorway. She appeared to be in her 30s, with long dark hair and pale skin. She was wearing a white nightgown that seemed to glow in the darkness. "I'm sorry," Kevin stammered. "I'm renting this place through Airbnb. The host is Jennifer. I'm Jennifer," the woman said, stepping closer. "And you're not supposed to be here." Kevin's heart pounded. "But you messaged me. You gave me the entry code." I never left," Jennifer interrupted. "I never left this house." The temperature in the kitchen began to drop rapidly. Kevin could see his breath forming clouds in the beam of his flashlight. The woman, Jennifer, continued approaching. and Kevin could see now that her feet weren't quite touching the floor. "I died in this house," Jennifer said, her voice becoming hollow and distant. "Carbon monoxide leak. I was sleeping in the master bedroom when it happened. I never woke up." Kevin backed toward the front door, but it wouldn't open. The smart lock beeped repeatedly, refusing to accept any code he tried. "The people who found my body," Jennifer continued, "they thought they could just clean up and rent out my home like nothing happened. They created fake profiles, used my photos, pretended to be me, but I'm still here." Kevin pulled out his phone to call for help, but every number he dialed connected to the same voice. Jennifer's voice, whispering, "You can't leave. No one leaves." "What do you want?" Kevin whispered. "Company," Jennifer said simply. "I've been alone for so long. Everyone who stays here tries to leave. But I need someone to stay with me." As she spoke, the house began to change around Kevin. The modern furniture aged rapidly, becoming covered in dust and decay. The walls developed dark stains, and the smell of gas began to fill the air. Kevin realized he was seeing the house as it really was, abandoned, contaminated, and deadly. "The real owners don't know," Jennifer said. "Criminal rings have been using empty houses, dead people's identities, but I won't let them profit from my death, and I won't let my guests leave." Kevin could feel the gas getting stronger. His vision began to blur, and he staggered toward the living room. Through the windows, he could see other houses on the street, all dark except for one. In that house, he saw figures moving around, other people, other guests who had never left their Airbnb rentals. "How many?" Kevin gasped. "Dozens," Jennifer replied. "Every house on this street, every fake listing. We all died here, and now we all have company." Kevin's legs gave out, and he collapsed onto the sofa. As consciousness slipped away, he heard Jennifer's voice, closer now, almost gentle. "Don't worry. The gas won't hurt you for long. And then you'll understand. Then you'll stay willingly." When Kevin opened his eyes, it was morning. Bright sunlight streamed through the windows. The house looked modern and clean again. His phone had full signal, and when he called 911, they answered immediately. The police arrived within minutes. They found no evidence of gas leaks, no signs of supernatural activity. The house belonged to a family who had been out of town for a week, completely unaware that someone had been staying there. But when investigators traced Kevin's Airbnb booking, they discovered something chilling. The profile he had booked with belonged to Jennifer Hartley, a woman who had died 6 months earlier in a house just 3 blocks away. Carbon monoxide poisoning? The scam was sophisticated. Criminals were using dead people's identities to create fake listings in random houses. But Kevin's case was different. No one could explain how Jennifer's account had been active, sending messages and providing door codes. Kevin left Portland immediately, but he still receives messages sometimes. Late at night, notifications from Airbnb appear on his phone. Always from Jennifer. Always the same message: "Your stay isn't over. Come back when you're ready." And sometimes, when Kevin is staying in hotels now, he'll smell fresh coffee brewing in the middle of the night, even when there's no coffee maker in the room. Marcus had specifically chosen this Airbnb because it reminded him of his grandmother's house. The listing described a charming 1960s ranch-style home in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside of Chicago, complete with original hardwood floors, vintage fixtures, and a finished basement recreation room. The host, Robert, had been incredibly accommodating during the booking process. When Marcus mentioned he was visiting for his father's funeral, Robert had offered the property at a discounted rate and even stocked the refrigerator with groceries. It was exactly the kind of peaceful environment Marcus needed during such a difficult time. The house was located on a tree-lined street where every property looked like it had been built around the same era. Robert's house fit right in: brick exterior, large picture windows, and a circular driveway. Inside, the house felt frozen in time in the most comforting way possible. The living room featured wood-paneled walls, a brick fireplace, and furniture that looked like it came from a 1970s catalog. Robert had left detailed instructions about the property, including a note about the basement recreation room. "Feel free to use the basement anytime," he had written. "There's a pool table, vintage arcade games, and a comfortable seating area. The door at the bottom of the stairs leads to storage. Please don't go in there, as it contains personal family items." Marcus appreciated the host's transparency and had no intention of invading Robert's privacy. He was just looking for a quiet place to stay while handling funeral arrangements. On his first night, Marcus decided to check out the basement recreation room. The stairs led down to a surprisingly spacious finished basement. Just as advertised, there was a pool table, several classic arcade games including Pac-Man and pinball, and a comfortable seating area with a leather couch. But as Marcus was examining the arcade games, he noticed something odd about the storage room door Robert had mentioned. Unlike every other door in the house, this door had what appeared to be a heavy-duty deadbolt lock, the kind of lock you might use on an exterior door, not for storage. There was also a strange smell coming from under the door, not necessarily unpleasant, but distinctive, like cleaning chemicals mixed with something else he couldn't identify. Over the next 2 days, as he dealt with funeral arrangements, Marcus found himself spending more time in the basement. It was quiet and private, a good place to make phone calls without disturbing anyone. But each time he was down there, he noticed new details that seemed out of place. The storage room door had scratches around the lock, as if someone had repeatedly struggled with the key. There was also what looked like a ventilation system running along the ceiling, with ductwork that led specifically to that room, unusual for simple storage. Most disturbing was the sound. Late at night, when the house was completely quiet, Marcus could hear what sounded like movement coming from inside the storage room. Not loud enough to be certain, but rhythmic sounds that suggested someone was moving around in there. On his fourth night, Marcus decided he needed to know what was behind that door. He had noticed that Robert kept spare keys in a kitchen drawer. None were labeled for the storage room, but there was one unmarked key that looked different from the others, heavier and more sophisticated. At 2 a.m., when the neighborhood was completely silent, Marcus crept down to the basement with the unmarked key. His hands were shaking as he approached the storage room door, but he needed to know if someone was being held down there. The key fit perfectly. Marcus slowly turned the deadbolt and opened the door, using his phone's flashlight to illuminate the space beyond. What he found was far worse than he had imagined. The storage room was much larger than expected, extending into what appeared to be a tunnel system that connected to other properties. The room contained dozens of personal items that clearly didn't belong to Robert. Suitcases, clothing, electronics, and even driver's licenses and passports from different people. Most disturbing were the photographs. Hundreds of photos were pinned to bulletin boards that lined the walls, showing people in various locations around the neighborhood. Some photos were surveillance shots, while others appeared to be taken inside houses. Many of the people in the photos matched the IDs and personal items stored in the room. As he was trying to process what he was seeing, he heard a sound that made his blood freeze. The front door of the house opening and closing. Robert had returned. Marcus quickly turned off his phone light and tried to decide whether to hide or attempt to make it back upstairs. But then he heard Robert's footsteps heading directly toward the basement stairs. "Marcus," Robert called out in a friendly voice. "Are you down there?" "I saw the light on." Marcus had no choice but to respond. "Yes, I'm here, just playing some pool." "Great, I'll come down and join you." As Robert's footsteps descended the basement stairs, Marcus quickly closed the storage room door and relocked it, slipping the key into his pocket. He grabbed a pool cue and tried to appear casual, but his hands were shaking. Robert appeared at the bottom of the stairs with a warm smile, but his eyes immediately went to the storage room door. For just a moment, his friendly expression flickered, and Marcus saw something cold and calculating underneath. "Did you enjoy exploring the basement?" Robert asked, his tone still friendly, but with an edge Marcus hadn't heard before. "Yes, the arcade games are amazing," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Robert walked over to the storage room door and tested the handle. It was locked, just as he had left it. But Marcus noticed that Robert seemed to be looking for signs that someone had been there. "You know, Marcus, I've been thinking about your situation," Robert said, moving closer. Losing a parent is such a difficult experience. Sometimes people need more time to process their grief than they initially expect. "Actually, I'm planning to check out tomorrow morning," Marcus said quickly. "Oh, that's unfortunate," Robert replied. "I was hoping you might want to extend your stay. This house has a way of growing on people. Some guests find it so comfortable they never want to leave." The way Robert emphasized "never want to leave" made Marcus's skin crawl. He excused himself, claiming he was tired. But as he climbed the basement stairs, he could feel Robert's eyes watching his every movement. Back in his bedroom, Marcus packed his bags and waited until he heard Robert leave the house again. Then he slipped out through a back window and called the police from his car. When officers arrived to investigate, they found the house completely empty. Robert was nowhere to be found, and the storage room had been cleared out entirely. But investigators did find evidence that the room had recently contained a large number of items. The police discovered that Robert was not the actual owner of the house. The property belonged to an elderly man who had been in a nursing home for over 2 years, completely unaware that someone was using his house as an illegal rental operation. Most disturbing was the discovery that at least 8 people who had stayed at this Airbnb over the past year had been reported missing by their families. All had been traveling alone, and all had last been seen checking into this property. The house is now under police surveillance, but Marcus still has nightmares about what he discovered in that basement room. He often wonders how many other Airbnb properties might be hiding similar secrets, and how many travelers might be walking into situations they'll never escape from.